Well, there's several ideas behind this concept of negative emotions. In the fourth way, the idea is initially to not express them. Let's say you're irritated
Yeah.
or you're impatient or you're angry, and then you vent that. You try to express that to the person. You blame the other person for doing something wrong, or they're not doing it the way you imagine they should do it, or they
Yeah.
shouldn't act a certain way, or you think they're not treating you the way you ought to be treated. Then you find yourself expressing these negative emotions. The idea that is that consciousness is identified with these four centers. And when these centers manifest in us, our consciousness, or as is sometimes now called our awareness, attaches and then becomes identified, meaning it attaches itself as a feeling of identity in relation to, like this movement, my hand. On the one hand, this is me, this is my hand. Move. That's how it's normally experienced. But from a point of view of a more conscious perception, this is just a hand. It's just moving. It doesn't really belong to me. It's part of this body, yes. But as far as consciousness, this is just a hand. And the same is true with our thoughts and our emotions and our sensations. We immediately latch onto them and feel them as a sense of identity. And when we express negative emotions, we're almost cementing that bond. When we express a negative emotion, all of this psychological, the things I've just described, they are melded, they mash together. And when we express them, they come out as an expression of a person. It's like they almost take physical form when we express them. They go from a molecular experience inside of us, psychologically, into this outward expression that's now cellular, if not physical. And people can feel it when you're negative toward them. So the idea in the fourth way is, there's so much to say on this topic, but in simple form, you could say the idea is to withhold the expression. In other words, to close the door on it so that energy doesn't go out. It stays inside. You're not trying to suppress it. You're not trying to stop it from inside. If you have a negative thought, you don't want to say, oh no, I don't want to have that thought, I want to get rid. No. You watch that thought inside. You observe it. And this power of observation is the key to all of this work. By not expressing it, now you can begin to actually observe its machinations, its mechanics, its operation internally in you psychologically. And then you can trace that back to, why did I just feel irritated? Why don't I like it when he does that? Why am I angry? Why am I feeling sorry for myself? And you begin to examine all of that. But you can't, there's nothing to observe if you express it. And so you contain it, but you do it on purpose. It's like a scientist. You now, instead of letting all this raw material just go outside, you're going to take it into your laboratory and examine it. Why is Ivan anxious about his transition in his career or whatever? And you just start looking at that internally. If you remember that you can't really observe it if you express it. It's too late. It's completed itself. But if you can take it inside, try to gain a little distance from it internally and see it like you would see a hand. And instead of you becoming this hand, now you can see, here's this anger, or here's this irritation, or here's this worry, this silent presence in yourself, which is inside you at your core, and it can be present. It's usually not conscious as itself behind here looking. But that silent presence can now look at the worry in your inner world. We're not even accustomed to observing our inner world. And we don't realize that in many ways it is as spacious as the external world. Because we are not conscious, we're not present, it's all mashed together inside most of the time. And it's only by virtue of the light of observation, our inner world starts to reveal itself as a very also spacious, dynamic thing where we have thoughts and emotions, and our sense of I shifts and moves around. In one situation we feel confident, let's say. Then 2 hours later we're with a certain other person, or something happens and now we don't feel so confident, or we're more happy and then we're more sad, or we're more anxious. To start to see all of this, now this inner world will begin to open up. And the more it does, the more you will have to observe, and you will see there's quite a lot to observe in there. But then the temptation is not to identify with what you see, to remain as this observing presence. That's what this work is really about. That's what the fourth way, like all these great spiritual teachings, it's what it's about. That's what all the great religions of the world, at their essence, at their core, were really originally intended. At their inception, they were all exactly the same, but designed for different cultures and different mentalities and for different centers.